Hi, everyone. Yep. Sorry, I had to unmute. Hi, my name's Ryan, and I am here today with Amabel Holland. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Awesome. Tonight's episode of Creators Corner, we will be discussing all Amabel Holland, design, developer, uh, e- everything in between. I think for a board game, for a Hollandspiele board game, that's for sure. Um, so as part of Creators Corner, what we like to do is we like to bring in those that are involved in this hobby that we love. And so, first of all, thank you so much, Annabelle, for joining tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This has been one I've been very excited to do. So let's start right away with the question we always start with for our Creators Corners, which is, what is your board game journey? What was how do we get to this point from board gaming?
Oh gosh. I first came across hobby games. So I was in Ann Arbor, which is a college town in Michigan, and I was hanging out with a pal, and we went into a comic book store, and I went into the basement to look for back issues for my New Mutants collection. And in the basement, they had all these board games I had never heard of, and they had the designer's name on the box. And who is this Reiner Knizia guy? There's a lot of his games here, and there's a $300 deluxe edition, some giant edition of something called Catan. What is that? And I just come across that, and I was like, why don't you find out what this is? And looked into it. And up until that point, I've been kind of looking for like, what am I gonna do like creatively as a person? So I want to be a creative person, have a creative career. I had tried various things. I had uh, made films and written books and made video games, and none of that got anywhere. And I thought, well, maybe I can try board games, and I did, and it worked. I did some freelance designs, especially some train games, and then some war games were the two niches I kind of fell into. And over the process of that, I kind of learned the production end of things. And eventually, me and Mary Holland decided to form a company together, Hollandspiele, which we did in 2016.
Okay.
And that's been full time since 2017. So about 6 months after we started, it became a full time job. And here I am.
Yeah. Hey, that's one. Eh, so it all started with just going into the basement and seeing Catan, right? That's awesome. Um, in particular, uh, you did mention that you did some freelance design work, and that you fell into a niche of train game and war game. So, what was that like with design having your first design, like your first published board game? Was it your first design? What was that story like?
So it wasn't my very first. So I did a few designs that didn't sell. I actually tried to do kind of lighter to midweight Euro games,
Okay.
but I did not have much success with that, getting publishers to look at it. Um, I had a lot more success once I said, well, maybe I'll do a game about trains. And because there's this publisher, Winsome Games, that only does train games. So I know they might want to look at it. And I can see the kind of games they do and do something that's in a similar vein. And I thought that also they had a reputation for being very good developers. And
Hmm.
one thing I needed to do was learn my craft. Um, it was very difficult when I first got into the hobby because I was not someone that had a lot of disposable income. I was buying maybe one or two games a year, and they were on sale and usually a few years old.
Yeah.
So that's what I could afford at that time. And it's kind of hard to keep up with the pulse of the hobby, the development of the form when you're doing that. And it's kind of hard to learn from that. So I needed to do something where I could work with an experienced development team and that would kind of show me some of the ropes. So the first game, there are two games that the first two games. One was a war game about the Battle of the Alma, and then one was Northern Pacific, and they kind of were sold at the same time. One came out before the other, but Northern Pacific was really the first one. And when I designed that game, uh, yeah, that's the Rio Grande edition there.
Yeah.
So if you go over to you're hovering over
Right
it.
here.
Yeah, that's what it used to look like.
Oh man.
Yeah. Um,
Well, it's a winsome. Yeah.
yeah. And when I was designing the game, I was having play tests once a week. I had people over at my house once a week to play test games for a couple hours. And, I did a bunch of games that I was designing that were like hour and a half, 2 hour games. So I get like one test done a week. But
Yeah.
Pacific was a 10-minute game. So I was able to test that several times
Oh, nice.
each night. And that came together very quickly. So I did something small, something I could test quickly, and something that I figured this particular publisher would want. In fact, if they had said no, I don't know where I would have pitched it. But they did say yes. And the first version I gave them, the map was half the size of that map there. So
Oh man. Okay.
they extended the map, and the way they kind of redesigned the map taught me a lot about map design, like where they put the choke points, where they put the points where you can go either direction, and so forth. And so I learned a lot just from seeing what they did with my initial design, and I think they helped me tremendously. You know,
That's one process in particular that I I like hearing about too, the development process, because it's one thing for going in for designing, but it's having someone else at the helm to kind of like see this idea and help formulate it to something that is going to be marketable, but also enjoyable and still carry that message. I think it's pretty important. I see Brian, by the way, is in the chat. Hey, Brian. And I see Mr. Rouse in the chat. Uh, and it's so funny. I have this backdrop of board games of yours that I have in my collection, and I also have Northern Pacific that's over like there, but
okay.
it just completely skipped my mind. Um, but it with Northern Pacific in particular, and later on it would be picked up by Rio
The Rio
Grande.
Grande, yeah.
Yeah, Rio Grande. Um, so what and was that uh when you went into that direction with train games? Because how much what was next after that? Was it still focusing on train games? Were you focusing more so back on war games, or kind of doing something
So I
else?
was kind of doing both of those things because I did a train game, they bought it, so
Yeah,
I wanted to do another train game. And I actually had the idea for the next one, which was Irish Gauge,
yeah.
when I was stuck in traffic.
Okay.
An hour on the way home, I was stuck in traffic, and just it kind of came fully formed. And that one actually, that one I submitted to Winsome. They agreed to publish it. That was before the first one even came out.
Yeah.
And that one, they did not really change at all in development.
Oh, really?
In fact, the only real one they tinkered with significantly anyway was Northern Pacific.
Okay.
But I mean, the game just kind of came together, kind of perfectly formed in my head, which that's happened like twice since then. And I've done 70 games, so most games aren't like that. Most games are
Yeah.
a lot more, sweat and effort and having to push through it. So I was doing those, and then I did the war game, and it did well. I mean, it was published, and so they said, "Do you want to do another one for us?" I said, "Sure," because I want to get experience
Sure.
and I want money. So I did some more war games, and that led to me actually editing a war game magazine for a little while.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
It was a lot of work and not very much pay, but I did learn a lot about like the production process, like the tolerances of a counter sheet
Yeah.
and whatnot. I learned to design for a magazine format, which carried over in some of my early Hollandspiele designs. because I was designing for like a half sheet of counters and particular sizes of paper and whatnot. And I'm trying to get a little bit away from that mindset of, okay, I need to make this fit exactly 88 counters that are 5-6 inch,
Yeah.
and the counter colors have to be in blocks of 16 or 8. Like, I'm trying to get away from that a little bit, but it's just a habit I've developed from doing a number of magazine war games. And then did like 5 or 6 train games for Winsome, and then a few for Hollandspiele, and then I've done other stuff with Hollandspiele, of course, since then, because I have that kind of freedom. But no one can tell me they don't want my Euro games anymore. I can do something like
That's
Field of
true.
Cloth of Gold, right? Or something like Islet, which is just a weird game with shoelaces.
Well, I
I,
saw Brian wants to hear that story as well.
okay, I mean, I can tell that story. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll pull it up on I'll pull
Okay.
it up on the screen over here.
So how Islet came together is, first of all, um, I had briefly taken up cross stitch, which I was terrible at,
Okay.
and I really liked just kind of the repetitive tactile sensation and whatnot. Secondly, I had come across a couple word games at thrift stores. I spent a lot of time going to thrift stores looking for old games and records, and I came across a couple word games where the gimmick of the game has something to do with the physical components, like the physical form of the game. And I
Mm.
thought, that's a cool design space that doesn't get a lot of play these days. A lot of Euro games, you can proxy a lot of different things, but something where the actual physicality of the thing matters is unusual. And I just kind of was thinking about that, and I just thought, what if I had a game with shoelaces pulled through a board, and then I made an early version of the board. That early version, the spaces were equally spaced in a grid. That didn't work. Uh, this version did. I got in touch with my printer about making the board, and we experimented with different thicknesses of board.
Hmm.
I had to experiment. Like, most of the development of this was less about play balance and more about like the physicality, because
Yeah.
the play balance was pretty easy to because no one owns a lace, and every player, after taking your turn, you're handing the board back to your opponent, so no one's put in a bad position that they're not themselves in.
Yeah.
I didn't need to worry too much about that actual part of the balance, but I need to make sure the thing physically worked, that the board could withstand the laces going through it, and it was the right thickness. I needed to experiment with the length of the laces and the type and texture of the laces. And it was really cool, actually, to put so much time and effort into the physical production of a thing, and make something that's pretty and tactile. And I really enjoy playing the game myself quite a bit. It's very chill and relaxing, and it's very calming. I definitely I am autistic, and I get it's I've made myself a stim toy basically.
Yeah. And with your games in particular from Hollandspiele, I mean, you're putting them together too. Like, right?
Mhm.
Like in terms of tying the knots for the shoelaces. Like,
Yes, every knot's been tied by myself,
I
which
mean,
seemed like a cool idea at the time, but then like it really starts to get irritating after a while. And I get a little get little tiny rope burns on my thumb and finger, and it's
oh
like,
my
"Ugh,
god.
I gotta do more of these."
But it's such a but what's great about this too is because you have this you have your own you have Hollandspiele, right?
Mhm.
Your own publisher. Like you can kind of make the game about shoelaces and don't need to pitch it out. And I think that's fantastic, honestly.
Yeah.
That's honestly what it draws me, and I'm sure it's drawn many people into seeing Hollandspiele games and kind of seeing what games can come out from that when it's just very much from your mind and from and and now we're just playing a board game with shoelaces, or
Hmm.
now we're playing a train game with dinosaurs now. Yeah, I think it's great. By the way, I see some other people in the chat. I see Nick is here, Chris is here. Um, so going back to it with design and then going into your own publisher. I mean, that? What was the decision for just starting Hollandspiele?
So it came from a couple places. One is that when I started designing games, it was with an eye towards making it, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
either a full time thing or a decent sized gig for when I have a real job. Um, and I knew that the money is in publishing, is not in freelance designing, unless you have some kind of huge hit, which I did not think I had in me because my games are a little strange.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I knew eventually I would move into publishing. And what I really wanted to do was establish myself as a designer, get some kind of reputation, and then use that to um, move into publishing. And that hadn't really happened by the time that we did it. By the time that we did it, Mary and I had both done some work for other publishers putting games together for them, picked up the general skill set. I thought, well, we can do this. We can do this in a way that minimizes the initial outlay of cash. And we can do this in a way that allows us to publish games. We using print on demand rather than having to do a Kickstarter or something or have a bunch. We didn't have a lot of money. We thought, well, we'll do it. We'll just do the thing, and we assumed because we both worked for war game publishers that we would be publishing just like standard Hex Encounter war games, and occasionally that would allow us to do some weird thing that I wanted to do, and really once we started taking off, it was the weird stuff that took off and not the hex and counter stuff per se. So I'm really pleasantly surprised by the direction the trajectory took. You know,
Yeah, of course.
but that's basically where it came from, and yeah, we started the company in the summer of 2016. Started publishing our first few games. We were very lucky that one of the earliest games we signed was Cole Worley's game in Infamous Traffic. That
Yeah.
definitely put us on the map in a very sizable way and got us in the black, which then put us in a position where in February or March of 2017, we could look at, well, can we make this a full time thing? And at that time, we weren't making enough money to make it full time, but we figured if we were full time at it, would have enough hours to put out enough games to make it work full time. And that's when I quit my day job, which was a little terrifying. I mean, I was kind of done with that job at that point. I was like, I don't want to do this job anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's still like we didn't know if it was going to work or not. But it did. Like after a few months, stuff really took off. That's when some of my more popular games started coming out. Um, Forks came out that year, which I wouldn't necessarily call that popular, but certainly drew some attention.
I don't
And
know
then
that one. Don't, you said it was Forks?
4X.
4X. I'm
You
sorry. I heard
know 4X,
Forks. I
yeah.
was like, what is that?
That's a great name. I'll have to do Forks. That's a
I
great
mean,
name.
4X I did play. Don't look at my rating. I did play it.
Oh no! Wait, scroll. Let me see that rating.
I gave it a 6. I gave it a
Okay,
6.
that's fair. That's
But
fair.
to be
Most
fair,
people do.
I did thoroughly enjoy it because of how wacky it is. It's very wacky. Like we're
Yeah.
going all over the place with pulling levers in this one, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I had a great time with 4X. It was it, and that was I think that was my second ever game I played of yours. 'Cause I played Irish Gauge first,
Okay, that
and
makes
then I
sense.
went to 4X, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? And I did Iberian Gauge after, which I was like,
Okay.
okay, yeah. Yeah, Chris is right. I am a fan of Wacky. And this, yeah, actually, this is on Board Game Arena too, where you could play it as
Yes,
well.
that's the only Hollandspiele game on Board Game Arena, which is wild to me that
What?
that was the one.
How does that work? Do you not have a say in that, or it's
Oh,
just
I mean, someone contacted me and
okay?
asked for the license, and we said sure, but no one's contacted us about the other ones yet.
Oh man,
You know, I actually put out a little feeler on Twitter the other day, and I'm going to send a newsletter out tomorrow. I was going to mention it there as well. But I would love to see like Field the Cloth of Gold or Dual Gauge on Board Game Arena.
hmm
I just need someone because I can't do it. I can barely turn the computer on, so
yeah.
don't ask me to do anything that involves the kind of nah.
Yeah, I mean it's something else. Like they have their own interface and everything, and it's the developer side is can be an undertaking for sure. Um, when it comes to so you mentioned before that infamous traffic that helped out bring Hollandspiel games forward.
Mhm.
In terms of working, because now you're on the other side of the equation where you're taking in other people's designs and deciding if they're going to be going through Hollandspiel or not.
Mhm.
How has that process been? And I mean, are you helping out with developing? I mean, I'd love to hear all about it.
Okay, so most of the games I do development work for. There are a handful that I haven't because I didn't feel that they were within my bailiwick. For example, we have a solitaire game called That Others May Live that will be coming out in a couple months. I don't think it has a Board Game Geek page yet.
Okay, I'll take your word
I'm
for
very, very bad
it.
about that. But it's about combat search and rescue missions in Vietnam. And it's
Yeah,
from the designer of NATO Air Commander. So I feel, it's going to be a very popular game. But I also knew, like, modern air stuff, that's not my forte.
yeah,
That's not something where I can bring the skills I need as a developer. And we ended up asking Ryan Heilman, who designed a few games for us, like Brave Little Belgium and Ginormopod 2050 AD,
okay,
Attack of the Giant Bug Monsters.
yeah,
Um, we asked him to develop it, and he did the development on it. And we also had there was a developer on the Horse and Musket series for a while who was taking it because he was an expert in that period. Other stuff I tend to do the development. Sometimes the development is very involved. Sometimes it's very light. It really depends on the game and what work needs to be done with it. And I think over time I've gotten better at figuring that out.
yeah,
I also have though a higher tolerance for things that are uh, strange or have corners you might get caught on. I
yeah.
don't want to sand off those rough edges, but I do. I want it to be something that I'll be proud to put out there. Um, so that's yeah. So development takes many different forms. Sometimes development process is quite quick. Sometimes it's quite lengthy. Like NATO Air Commander, for example, had been pitched to us in 2016, and I think it came out in 2018.
Okay,
Might have been 2019. I don't remember now. Um, and it went through several iterations. I spent a lot of time with the designer. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that?
yeah,
2018. Okay, so that was
yeah,
like a 2-year process of development, whereas some games have been much quicker.
yeah. I mean, and it's what's interesting too. With these games too, you're also putting them all together too, right? Or how's the process work for for like getting NATO Air Commander, for example? How
Okay,
how how
I
is
mean,
that process?
yeah. So after we did the development, like the game works.
Mm,
At that point, it moves to art. So we hired an artist to do the map. That was Anya Ziakolska, who
yeah,
did several maps for us. Um, and we talked to her about the direction we wanted to take. We want to look like something like a game from the 80s. And so she had some touches there to give it kind of an old fashioned look. I had to design the box cover, which I did in this kind of as a homage to like the old Victory games
Mm-hmm.
from the 80s. I laid out the counter sheet, had the little silhouettes for the planes and whatnot.
Yeah.
I laid out the cards. Mary laid out the rule book. Then we take all that and we send the card files to a card printer, and we send the other files to our regular printer. The things are printed. We check them over. They look good. Then we have a run of cards done, sent to the regular printer. He prints the game, puts the card in, sends it to people.
Yeah.
Now, if this had been a game that had wood bits or whatnot, then we would have had wood bits in our house from. We would have ordered from a supplier in Germany, and then we would have sorted the wood bits, sorted the wood bits, put
Yeah.
them into bags, and then ship those bags to our printer. Because every piece of wood has been touched by my hand or Mary's. Like we've counted every single cube or disc or whatnot, put them in every single bag, sealed them up, um, and that's basically the process.
And then
And
you're selling them through Hollandspiele's site as well
yeah,
too.
yeah. So when you order the game, the site we get the money. Then we say to our printer, "Hey, send this game to this person, or these games to this person." He sends the order. We take the money that we were given by you. We take out what we need for the royalties and what our profit is, and the rest of it we give to the printer to print the games.
Yeah.
So it's a method of printing, the print on demand, that is more expensive because they're printed one at a time.
Yeah.
But so we don't benefit from like economies of scale. But it's also limits cash flow problems because there's not a whole lot of upfront expenses other than art, and then occasionally the cards and the cubes if there are games that have those. And unfortunately, those are the games that tend to get more attention or sell more than the games that don't have cards or cubes. So there is more upfront expenses now than there used to be.
Yeah.
But also, we're doing better now. We have 70 plus games out. So, um,
That's exciting.
yeah.
And you get to that point where, yeah, you have 70 games out, you know? This past year, I saw Endurance was on the front page of Board Game Geek. You know, there was a whole thing
Mhm.
about that. Um, and that ties in, like I saw on Hollandspiel's site, you have a whole section just for solo gaming.
Mhm.
Do you have, are you a solo gamer? Do you play solo
I
games
do play
or?
some solo games, yeah.
Yeah.
I play some two-player games solo, especially in testing stages,
Yeah.
early testing stages. And I have played some solo games. And yeah, those are 7 solo games. So, oh, Endurance isn't in there.
I don't see Endurance
Oh, I
there.
need to talk. I need to talk to Mary. We need to actually put Endurance in the solo collection. That's a problem. That.
Uh-oh. Well, that's okay. We'll mark it down. Oh, Danielle's in the chat. Danielle's also a big solo board gamer as well too. Um, and I do want to bring up the solo game from you that I played last year, and I absolutely just was floored how much I enjoyed
Oh
it.
yeah, heading forward's not there. Okay, we
That
got to
heading
update that
forward's not
solo
there.
section. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm
goodness.
bringing it up right here. Okay, I'll show you. There's my rating for that one.
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal game.
It really was. Heading forward is a game that I feel like I'm on like the border of like evangelizing it to so many people because I really think this game needs to be talked about way more than it is.
Oh yeah,
The the story alone. I mean, you want to talk about it?
sure. So,
Yeah,
this is a game about recovering from a traumatic head injury,
yep.
and the designer John DuBois himself had a traumatic head injury, so it's based on his experiences. And it's a game that. So first of all, the victory conditions of the game, you have to progress 3 skills to a certain level before time runs out. And if time runs out and you haven't done that yet, then your insurance cancels payment. So it has that kind of thing hanging over it.
Yeah.
But it also, at the beginning of the game, your progress is so slow, and you have to fight for every inch of it. And then over time, it starts to get easier. Most of the time, sometimes it gets a little harder when you get a setback, and it gives you that feeling of just banging your head against this wall and slowly eking out something, and it's incredibly evocative. I mean, I would say there are three games I didn't design that I'm most proud of that we published. One of those is Infamous Traffic. One is Meltwater, and one is Heading Forward. And those three are like the games that I see as what we as a company can offer and can do, and are the ones I want like front and center as often as possible, because this is such a remarkable design. I was
Yeah.
so impressed by it.
and
Um,
and it tells such a great story. Like
mhm.
with the mechanics, it really tells this story as to because in the beginning of the game, one of these all these cards different skills that you're going to be that you're going to be trying to regain like regain your skills to do cooking or to drive a car. But one of these is the trigger card, and whenever that comes out, you have to focus on it, and it has to do with what got you to this point. And I think the story it tells in 30 minutes is far grander than some of the narrative based board games I've played that have a focus on like telling a story. This one is screaming with it. Like it does
Yeah,
such an amazing job. And the fact is, it's when you win, right? It's not it's not that you've fully recovered. Even it's you recovered enough that your insurance is going to continue paying.
yeah.
And man, like when I bought this game, uh, I showed it right away to my wife because she's a physical therapist at a hospital, and she was also like, and she's not into board games at all, but she was very much like about this game and like brought it to work and like showed her coworkers like, look at this, like they're turning, like the deal with like the spoons and everything, like it was just yeah, this game like blew me away last year. Like last year, there were so many great games, but this one in particular just stood out for me
Oh yeah,
so much.
absolutely. It did for me as well. We published several games last year, but this is the one that I was so excited to get this to people,
Yeah,
because it hit me so directly, and it that's the thing, because we spend uh we get submissions all the time,
mm,
and we don't publish a lot of them. And it used to be, I was trying to figure out, well, how will this work for the market? Well, that was never the way to go. And I would look at, okay, well, you know, does this work? Does that work? But really, what it comes down to is, does the game make me feel like I have to publish this? And this is a game like I have to publish this,
yeah,
and that's where that came from, was this burning desire for this game to exist and to get
yeah,
it out in the world. And I am just so glad.
yeah.
I'm
It,
so proud of that work that we did
yeah.
on that game. And
It
yeah,
shows how board gaming too, as a medium, could be used.
yes, I feel very strongly about this. I try to
Yeah,
do experimental things and things that try to stretch what the medium can do. How will I succeed? Different people have different opinions about that, but I believe very strongly in the potential of the medium, and often that potential is not met. And I feel like this is a case where that potential is met. And
yeah,
um, yeah, I love that game.
yeah, for sure. And I will just yeah. Again, I can go on about how yeah I could go on so much about this game. Um, But you did also bring up another game, which I did most recently play. I think 2 weeks ago for the first time, and that was Meltwater as
Mhm.
well. Uh, and this one, I it was kind of I didn't know how to play the game, and we kind of just stumbled through until it really like clicked that moment and like oh this is what's going on because in Meltwater it's post-apocalyptic but there's two it's two armies
Mhm.
on Antarctica, which is the last bit of remaining land. And as you're trying to just regain dominance in there in that bit of land, the land just starts to get tarnished from the radiation fallback. Right? Is
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, and this one just again like I was very I was very much about this one.
Yeah, I was very struck by this game when it was first submitted to us because Erin Escobedo, the designer, this was her first game.
Hmm.
And if my first game had been like this, oh gosh, it's so cohesive and um, streamlined, and it has something to say, and it says it so effectively, and all that is like reason enough. Where like it's one of the games I'm proudest that we published,
Yeah.
and it left our catalog a couple years ago, um, like a year and a half ago, because another publisher was interested in it. Another publisher wanted to publish it, and we said, well, we're we're gonna lose. We could renew the license, but we want our friend Aaron to have money and to get this game to more people, so we let it go at that time. But even just because of that, I would say this is one of the most important games that we published. But more than that, I mean, this is what introduced me to my friend Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron's a very dear friend, and Aaron is definitely responsible to a degree for my whole deal, for my whole gender deal.
Okay.
you know, she saved my life. If she hears this, she'd be furious that I said that.
Oh.
She's so tired of me saying that, but she did. She absolutely did, and I'm so glad and lucky I published this game because if Mary and I hadn't published this game, I don't know if I would be here talking to you.
Man.
So,
Yeah, this I mean it's it's got to be like incredible too to watch like have that thing where another publisher wants to reach out to this and you're helping your friend grow, like it's
yeah,
just and I think with Infamous Traffic too, right? Cole has the rights to that now. I think
yeah,
he's planning on publishing it too.
he absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, back in 2019, the rights are coming up for renewal, and he said, "Hey, if you need this, you can keep the rights. If you need this for your company," I was like, "No, take it. You just had a Kickstarter for PAX Premiere when you made $250,000.
Yeah.
You're gonna make money with this. Take this." Because the way I look at it too is kind of like, you know, I don't mind being a stepping stone, right, for an unusual design. Um, there's there's a director and film producer who used to be quite active named Roger Corman, who did
Of
all the old
course.
B pictures. And there's something that he used to say to people, which is, if you direct a film for me, your first film, and you do a good job, you won't have to work for me again. And I like that. I like that. Yeah, people can bring a game to us, and if they do a really great job, someone else is going to want that. If they want to take that and give it to them and get more money for themselves and get more people playing the game, please do. We also like people to stay with us and do multiple games for us, but
Sure.
it depends what you're looking for. I mean, some people just want to have games out there and want to do weird little things. Some people want to be more successful, financially or as designers with more reach. And if we can give them that little step, we're happy to do that. I just want great games to exist and I want to put them out. And
I mean, I think you're doing a great job of that so far.
well, thank you.
And
We try. We try.
um, I do want to bring up too, because oh, by the way, Rachel's in the chat, and she does have a good point that she's glad that she did, and that you're very blessed to have her in your life. Um, I do want to bring up that you do have. I mean, in terms of fans of Hollandspiele, right?
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I mean, I think you posted. I think it was on the Hollandspiele site. I read it where the numbers are growing in terms of customers. And the one thing I was looking forward to, because I never bought a game from Hollandspiele until last year for the very first time. Because I was looking forward to, if I'm gonna get a game, got to do it during the holiday sale.
Hmm.
And I think that's because you do a annual holiday sale, and you always throw in like a free game in there too. And I'm a diehard also like classic movie monster fan, so I was very excited to
Okay.
see Watch Out. That's a Dracula.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I'm really happy with that one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, when I have a game that I could pitch to someone, I could say, well, we could play The Resistance, but not try out Watch Out. That's a Dracula. I mean, like,
Yeah, it's a good title. It's
like, yeah, like, I just love like the aesthetic of it and everything.
thank
Um,
you.
yeah. Full disclosure, I still haven't played it yet, but I'm really looking forward to playing it because I just love again the aesthetic and the cards. I've laughed at a bunch already. um, but I mean, you could definitely see a lot of character in your games. I mean, when I go through different productions, you absolutely see the character. You brought up tying the shoelaces. There's this game that has this crazy art. There's Dinosaur Gauge, which is
Yeah,
a serious train game with dinosaurs.
sure is.
And I think I mean that is what I look forward to when I hear about a Hollandspiel title. But I do look forward to again games that are pushing that medium.
Yeah.
Um, there is one. So we before we started this, I brought up one game that I saw you tweet about
Hmm.
that isn't on Board Game Geek yet, but I saw you tweet about it. And I really want to know more if I can
Okay.
about Doubt is Our Product.
Hmm.
So what about this game? Because I'm very excited to get this as soon as it's
Yeah.
available.
So this is planned for the end of this year.
Hmm.
Depends how quickly the testing finishes up. There's been some. So to make a long story very short, I had a period of time late last year and early this year where my brain was bleeding. I mean, actually, it
Okay.
still is bleeding. That's not great, but I'm not as worried about it as I was. We've done tests and whatnot. It was really hard to concentrate on work.
Okay.
So it is might this should be coming out the end of this year, but it might be early next year. I'm hoping for the end of this year, but it's a game about um, the disinformation campaign of the tobacco industry in the 20th century, which they used to, avoid culpability for millions of deaths. And it's a two-player game where one player is the tobacco industry and one player is a coalition of activists and scientists and whatnot.
Hmm.
And it's an asymmetrical game in that the industry player is playing a sort of deck building game, which is about making money and profit, and you're building your deck and you're getting your customers and getting money from them before they die,
Hmm.
and also putting out disinformation to block attempts to limit your profitability. And on the flip side of it, the activist player is playing more of a tableau building game with a very different set of mechanics. And there are points in which these mechanics interact with each other, but each player has their own set of cards and their own set of mechanics. So it's extremely asymmetric, but it's using what I think are pretty straightforward concepts in the hobby game world. Like most people who are going to play this probably have played a deck builder, probably played a tableau builder. So those mechanics are relatively simple. So we can see this asymmetry, see how different this is, because there are two things that really draw me to this. One is I'm very interested in disinformation and its spread.
Hmm.
Uh, or maybe better thing to say is I'm very concerned about disinformation and its spread
Yeah.
and the ways in which it is so much easier to spread disinformation than it is to debunk it. Like it takes so much more effort to debunk a thing, and then once it's out there, it's hard to get it take it back.
Hmm.
So I want to model that. And the other thing is that this is a thing that has personal significance. My father had lung cancer. I
Okay.
was 18 when he died. He was 38. My mother is still a lifelong smoker. Like it's, something that means something to me.
Mm.
And when it came time to be like, okay, gotta do another depressing game, another, because
Yeah.
those are the things people really expect from me to a degree, and those are like big drivers of sales. And it's also the stuff that I feel is pushing the medium a bit. Where I'm doing the
Yeah.
work that I'm proudest of in that sense. Um, so, well, it's going to be this one. This is going to be the thing I'm going to do because it's something that matters to me. I haven't done like a really angry political game in a few years. And that's because when I started hormone replacement therapy, I figured, well, my emotional regulation be all out of whack. I'm basically going to have the regulation of like a teenager. I
Hmm.
do not need some big depressing thing that I have to immerse myself in for a year and a half. It's to make
Yeah.
it way too hard. So I'm just going to take a break and do silly things. I'm going to do a game about shoelaces and about dinosaur railroad barons, and I'm going to do Watch Out, That's a Dracula. I kind of really got
Yeah.
into more of the whimsy there,
Hmm.
and I'm still doing that to a degree. Like I have a game coming out this summer. I don't have a cover yet, which is why it doesn't have a BGG page yet.
Okay.
But it's called KG, Kaiju Table Battles,
Okay.
which is giant monsters
Yeah.
stomping around. And the thing is, I love those movies. I've loved those movies since I was a wee little one. And it's very much a thing I'm doing for myself, something that I want to do this kind of whimsical, but also I'm using it to try to explore and express queerness in a meaningful way. It'll be
Okay.
interesting to see how this is regarded because it's easily the most ambitious thing I've done. Also, in that it's a legacy style game,
Whoa. Yeah.
and so when all the little envelopes you have to open,
Yeah.
I'm sorting all those cards and
Oh my
packing into all
goodness.
those envelopes. I'm doing it. Mary's supposed to help me, um, but like I'm gonna hate that. I'm gonna hate
Yeah.
that so much. But it's like a necessary thing for the kind of story I want to tell, which is a story about community and connection and how that allows us to become our best selves.
Okay.
And so that requires those kind of legacy style elements. So it'll be interesting to see how that's received because either it's going to be like successful and people will like it and respond to it, or it's going to be like a huge boondoggle,
Yeah.
you know. But I like that too because I like being able to take those chances. I like being able to take those big swings, and if they miss, they miss. It's luckily generally it doesn't cost me very much if something flops. Nothing's really flopped yet.
Hmm.
Uh, knock on wood. But
Okay. Knocking.
but if something does, well, I've done the thing for me, right?
Yeah.
And what the hell is money for?
Yeah.
So I that's what I got going on. I'm doing some whimsical stuff, and then getting back to this depressing tobacco disinformation game that you know I I think we'll have something to say, and I'm very interested in modeling spreading and combating disinformation,
Yeah.
and also modeling the ways money just. I'm not a big fan of corporations. Big
Sure.
surprise,
Yeah.
and the way that money allows companies to get away with so very much, and how disinformation and branding like warps people's perception of things, and yeah, so that's where I am with that one.
I mean, as a fan of Hollandspiele games. I'm that's what I that is exactly like why I love Hollandspiele games, and that's why I'm very happy to have you on here because um, you're absolutely right. It's something to see games that go out there taking a big swing, and I feel like for sure that it goes for a lot of Hollandspiele, if not every Hollandspiele game out there. Uh, so I'm very excited to see this output and see where you take this medium because as much as I like the dry Euro, I still I want to see where this medium can go. You know,
Yeah, me too.
so
There's see, I think my problem with my own like depressing, angry political games is that a lot of times it feels like I might be preaching to the converted
mhm,
because if like something like This Guilty Land, for example,
yeah, I'll pull that up too.
that's a game that you need to be pretty well versed in this hobby in order to engage with it
Yeah,
meaningfully, and you need to be able to do that in order to engage with his argument meaningfully. And I feel like the people who most need to hear whatever message the game has, what things I'm trying to express, aren't going to be sitting and playing this game. I think the Holy Grail is a game that can express something like this, but in a way that's much more digestible and approachable.
yeah,
And I don't know how easy it is to do that in a medium where games tend to cost, 40, 50, $60.
right.
So I think that's the holy grail. There is a game that really can resonate with people and really make an argument and show what the medium can be, but in a way that is approachable to a much wider audience. My stuff is very pitched at a niche.
I mean,
Um,
you're absolutely right. I mean, because in this game, right, you're either opposing or in favor of slavery, and you're just pitching that within. Is it in the court that you're pitching it? Is that correct?
it's more of
You're
like
like
a court of
ideas.
public opinion and the legislature. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So specifically, I'm trying to be very careful about this when the game came out.
yeah,
It's about um, the political struggle over the issue, and not about the issue itself. Because I can't. I feel I don't have a right to that story. I am not someone who has any insights into the lived experience of slavery or the lived experience of dealing with the legacy of that
yeah,
because I'm a white person. I
yeah,
don't I don't I don't have that. But something about the political debate and about centrism, which I'm not a fan of, is something that I can do very well and speak to. And so I tried to be very careful when the game came out to frame it. So when you do a game about a hot button issue or about a controversial issue or an issue where people have been hurt and are still dealing with the legacy of that hurt,
yeah,
you need to be very careful about what you're saying, how you're saying it, what you're not saying. You need to be very aware of what you're saying,
yeah,
and you need to be very aware of how you're framing it. Because if you don't, other people will read a frame into it that's not there, or that you didn't realize was there.
yeah.
So it creates a tremendous amount of pressure and care to do something on such a sensitive topic,
Absolutely.
which is one reason why these games are so draining. I spent a year and a half immersing myself in primary source material about the debate over slavery, both reading abolitionist documents and reading the absolute filth that came from the other side.
Yeah,
That was just, and that is so, just because a lot of those arguments at the time are basically the same arguments we're having today about civil rights issues. It was so draining and exhausting and depressing. And I knew doing the game that I was going to put myself through that.
yeah,
And I did that again when I did the vote. And I'm doing it again with this tobacco game, and
yeah.
it takes a toll, which is why I like to do silly games about vampires. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
need to give myself
Oh,
some
I'm trying to pull up the vote. Yeah. Right, and you have that going on as well too. And granted, I mean that's again. I feel like Hollandspiele at least is doing a. I mean, they're doing. You guys are doing a great job of just pushing this medium and seeing where it can go in terms of telling story, but also, yeah, I forget if I heard it somewhere or maybe it was on your website, but Hollandspiele puts out the games that Amabel wants to push out.
Well,
And
Annabelle and Mary.
and Mary. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. And Mary.
yeah. That's why the dinosaur games exist. That's for sure.
Right.
Uh,
That was her first code. That was her first design. Correct.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, Dinosaur Cage was her first design, and
Yeah.
I think she has a lot to be proud of there.
Yeah. But I do like this. I mean, I feel like with the vote, with this Guilty Land, with the tobacco game that you're gonna be working on next, and I've seen it like last episode we had of Creators Corner. We had Tori Brown here who
Oh
designed
yeah,
Votes
the
for
votes for
Women.
women. Yeah,
Yeah, and that again was a game that took that kind of subject matter and put the players in like if you're playing two players against each other, one player plays as the opposition.
yeah.
And I played as the opposition only once, and it was an awful, awful time. Not because the game was bad, but just because
Oh, it's an uncomfortable
it
position to be
it's
in. For
very
sure.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah,
but it does a great job of conveying a story and pushing this medium in a direction that I think is going to help it grow. You know, because board games themselves. I mean, I always hear people saying, "Oh, we're in the golden age of board games," but I look forward to games like that are coming out that have this unique twist. Games as powerful as Heading Forward was, but also as silly as Islet can be. Like I like these directions that the
I
board
like the
game
breadth
medium
of
is
it.
going.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so and I think that's makes it unique more so than any other. Uh, like obviously it makes it its own thing because it's a board game as opposed to like a video game or a book. Or it's one books are very tactile, but then video games are not. But I feel like the tactile nature of board games really help out too with pushing this medium forward.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this is awesome. I love having you on. Is there anything you want to bring up before we close off right now?
Um, we have a sale tomorrow.
Oh,
It's starting like at midnight, I
okay.
think.
That's 2 hours from
Um,
now.
yeah. Um, we are having a little canvas map sale with 8 canvas maps for sale. People who
Okay.
want canvas maps, we got Dinosaur Gauge and Horse and Musket and Ginormopod and 5 others. And and then we have concurrent with the sale, we have a new game coming out, which is the fourth annual expansion, scenario book expansion for Horse and Musket. And then 3 games are going to be on sale.
Okay.
So there's going to be $5 off each for Field of Cloth of Gold, Endurance, and Nicaea.
Okay.
So if you want to pick up those games, do it during our sale, which starts in a couple hours. So a little mini sale.
That sounds good to me. I'll stay up. uh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Amabel, thank you so much for joining. For those that are watching now too, next week we are going to be back with another episode of Call Aboard, which is our every other week call-in show about board games. And next week's topic is just the board games you played of that month. Every end of month we're going to be doing that. And the following week we will be doing a live playthrough and we were able to get an early copy of Cosmic Frog Finding Muck expansion. So I'm very excited about that because I love being a frog and bashing other frogs in the face, and getting bashed as well is pretty fun too. It's very ties in with some of the silliness of that the medium can do for sure. But anyways, thank you so much. I'm gonna cue up the music right now so we could dance away. Thank you all, and see you later.